Hello. Is this working? Am I on? Yes, I'm on. Had to check, didn't want to do it all for nothing. Anyway, this is my slightly late but just as relevant Christmas message. We've had the Queen, so it's my turn now. Now, what has happened in 2014? Well, unfortunately, as it is 99% unfortunate on the political front, because who makes our rules? Politicians, nobody else does. The interest rates have been the equivalent of driving the economy with the brakes on. Why is that? Because more people save than borrow. Very simple. What happens if the interest rates are low? House prices go up. What happens if house prices go up? People have less money, so they're spending more on their mortgages. Why are they spending more on their mortgages if the interest rates are low? Because the price of the house costs more, so they don't save a penny. Anyway, that is the problem, and the economies around the world are showing the result of low interest rates, because the whole Eurozone is up the creek. America isn't doing much better, and Britain has the lowest purchasing power for decades. And they're not doing anything about it, and they're now going to start quantitative easing in the Eurozone. If you think that's bad now, wait till they've done that for a year or so. So that is the big message of 2014, that is not going to change, but it's going to get worse, is the low interest rates are going to wreck the economy of the West. If you don't believe it, just watch for yourselves and follow the next things. Okay, what follows the interest rates? Well, Britain are replacing power stations with wind turbines. That is the latest policy, that they're going to get rid of all our power stations, and apart from the fact that per watt the onshore wind turbines cost about 6 times per watt and the offshore about 12 times per watt, of course they produce usable power around 7% of the time, because you can look at every year and what happens the rest of the time when they're not producing power. So obviously, by definition, a wind turbine is always blowing somewhere at a certain time. You have to create the grid to send it there, you have to spend the money on it, you have to buy the resources, all the metals and rare earths and motors, and they actually use electricity to run them. People don't tell you that, so start them up sometimes, melt the ice on them, stop them when they're going too fast, all requires electricity. So they're not actually particularly useful. So what happens when your wind turbine goes around 7% of the day? They've got diesel backups which are on the whole time, and they do all the work, so they don't need the wind turbines. So we've got all our lives are being destroyed for some reason by the people in power that we put in power. So with those two examples of how we've begun and ended 2014, and they plan for worse in 2015 and beyond, I want you to use it to exercise your intuition, because if something feels wrong, pardon me, it probably is wrong. It doesn't matter whether you have enough facts or not, that's not the point. So the thing is, the scientists are no more honest than anybody else. They are just academic people. All the academics are clever. Intelligence, morals and ethics do not go together. They are two independent qualities. You can be very intelligent and absolute crook, and you can be a lovely person, not intelligent at all. The two things are not connected. So why shouldn't scientists or anybody else be fooling you and exploiting their power over you, because they know more than you do, and you can't work things out yourself unless you go and check it. Now the point is that the scientists can, pardon me, originate all these things, but you can work it out, because what comes out of the scientists is fairly simple. They're making the complicated processes to understand things like the atmosphere, wind turbines and everything else, and you can see the other end, which is the temperature, the sea level rise, the size of the ice, and the amount of power the wind and the solar actually produce, which is very simple to understand. Now if the scientists use all their maths and equations to tell you X, Y and Z is going to happen, and it doesn't, then they're wrong. And you can see they're wrong, because the simple bottom lines do not add up. It feels wrong. You think, well, hang on a minute, windmills are 3,000-year-old technology. How on earth can something that was developed and then abandoned a few hundred years ago, when we got coal power and proper power stations to do the job constantly, would anyone want to rely on these old-fashioned primitive windmills that can't convert more than goes in, and they can't create wind when there isn't any? So even if you get the best windmill in the world, it will never do more than produce power 7% of the day. It can't do that on average, because that's the amount of time that the wind turbines produce between, what is it, 12 and 10 and 30 miles an hour or something, and outside that they don't do anything, and above that they have to use the brakes to stop them, etc. They don't do anything, they are money down the drain. So that is obviously logically wrong. So whatever they tell you, don't worry about their motives. The motives are absolutely irrelevant. Psychopaths don't need motives, it's money and power. That's all you need to know. Any more than that, you'll drive yourself as mad as they are trying to work out why they want to do this to us. Now, which brings me to Mr. Obama. What's that? Psychopath Obama? Yeah, you know, one thing leads to another. Now, one thing that Mr. Obama will be doing, and has done in 2014, is to bypass his Congress. Now, I live in Britain, I did British constitutional law, and I went out and taught it for some years, so I know all about our own constitution. I don't know much about the American constitution, except they've got a written one, we don't, yet none of our politicians have ever carried out a complete tyranny over us, because we've got a cabinet, we've got huge amounts of checks and balances in the House of Lords, in the opposition, everything else, and basically there is no bypass to the British Parliament. It has to go through the system, and it takes bloody ages, and 9 times out of 10, even when they've got a good idea, it doesn't get through because there's too much opposition, and they water it down or filibuster it and do whatever they can to stop it. So a lot of our good laws, or even repealing laws, which is just as difficult to get rid of a bad law than to create a good one, take years and years if they ever happen at all. Now in America the system is very odd, because I've been following it on and off, but I never knew about executive orders. Now what is an executive order? Don't ask me, but it appears that the President has got a certain number of cases where, instead of going through the British system, which is complicated, hasn't got a constitution but actually works, they just say, oh, I don't like this, you know, we can declare war in Britain. The Prime Minister's allowed to declare war, and he just dumped that and says that no, I'm going to consult Parliament anyway, and that's why we didn't bomb Syria. That's why America didn't bomb Syria, because if we wouldn't, they wouldn't. So we have chosen to get rid of one of the few executive powers remaining in Britain, while Obama has said, oh, I've got an executive power. Well, let's see, we've got the Senate, but we haven't got the House, so, you know, if anything gets tough, I'll just do an executive order. So the November elections, they lost the Senate as well. He said, oh, I don't care, I'll just use executive orders. And John Boehner, the Speaker, who's a Republican, has always gone with the Democrats, because that's what they do in America. It's, you know, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your bottom, or whatever they're doing. But they don't always go with the party line in America. They don't seem to have that much loyalty when there's a vote coming up. I don't know why. So he said, you are acting like an emperor or a king, which in other words is a dictator or a tyrant in plain English. So basically America has now become a dictatorship, because anything of any substance, such as the debt ceiling, which no longer exists, remember debt, quantitative easing, which is causing the low interest rates and causing the economy to tank around the world. But, you know, somebody gets rich from it, because if you take money away from one place, you move it somewhere else into the abyss of the system, which we never see that again. So you do now have 2 years of a dictator running America, which is now a dictatorship, because since the entire Congress is majority Republican, Obama will just say, well, that's all right, I found a way round it. He's a lawyer, you know, we're clever guys. That again, like the scientist, you can use it to help people, you can use it to take advantage of them, because if you don't know the law, you can either cheat people or help them by telling them what their rights are. And if you don't know the science, you can either explain to them how to make their house more efficient and make their car more efficient, or tell them you're not allowed to heat your house or drive your car at all because it'll cause global warming, because I'm a scientist and I'm telling you it. So even though it won't happen till you're dead. So that's sort of mafia science and mafia law and mafia politics. So really what's happening is the whole world, the entire world's been run by the mafia, except Tony Abbott in Australia, because they voted out the mafia in the form of the Labour Green coalition, who were just like everyone else in the world, except Tony Abbott's party, who managed to kick them out because the people voted to kick them out. So, you know, that is the one little bit of political good news, and the little bit of economic good news is the oil price is falling, which means that the crooks and the mafia do not have total control of the system. So, you know, there is always a crack in the door, there is always a little bit of looseness in the rope that they've wrapped you up like Houdini, and if you wriggle enough you can shake the whole thing off. So where is this leading me to at the end of the story? Use your intuition more. Don't trust the experts. If it doesn't feel right, and if you've got 2 or 3 experts telling you something different, then of course they can't all be right. The chance is that one of them is right or none of them are right, but you can't have more than one opinion or view being correct. So when you get 2 or 3 different scientists or economists or anyone else telling you something different, then they cancel each other out, don't they? I mean, some of them with the temperature, etc., you can find the sources yourself and you don't need anybody to tell you because you can bypass it or go on the internet and look it up. So you can't really con people on basics anymore with any figures, because you can look up the source and then their spin on it will disappear. So if it feels wrong, then it probably is wrong, because we are born and designed with 2 amounts of information, 2 totally different sources of information. One which we all know, which is experience. We learn something from outside, and our outside will show you, not on trust but on demonstration. You go in a lab, you repeat an experiment, you know it works, you trust it. You do your accounts, you make a profit, you know it works because there is the money in the bank. So that's how experience works. But intuition is very different. Very many examples of it, depending what the commonest one is, I think, for people, is criminality, because criminals are, I suppose, like the energy of cancer. If you've got these dogs or psychics who can actually detect when somebody's got a tumour, and they can feel it, and then they go and have an x-ray and find they've got tumour that wasn't detected otherwise, and they managed to get rid of it because they wouldn't have done if they hadn't found it in time. That's the sort of energy that criminals have around their aura, that you can feel. Now I'll give you examples. If you go in 2 different houses or 2 different cities that you've never been to before, they'll look pretty much the same. One will feel really good, one will feel really bad. That is the collective group of the people that have been in there that you are picking up. Don't ask me how it works. We've had this, animals have it long before anybody thought of science or was old enough to speak, because you've got that as a young child or an animal. Dogs and cats will always avoid the wrong people because that's their nature. They don't even think about it, it just feels wrong, and they'll either attack them or run out of the room when they come in because they pick it up instantly. We are exactly the same. We don't trust it or believe it because we believe in science, and if science hasn't worked out, it doesn't exist, except every 10 years science finds out something they didn't think existed does exist. So forget that, because at quantum level everything's possible and they know that, and that explains everything, and anything which sounds crazy in Newtonian physics is possible in quantum physics. So don't let anyone tell you these things aren't scientific, because they are. They just haven't caught up yet. Anyway, use your intuition. If somebody is a criminal, two different occasions, funnily enough it was the same person's friends that I met. I met these guys and I thought, oh my god, they are not right, and they've both been involved in all sorts of dodgy deals together and carried on doing it, and I picked it up immediately, and it's very easy to do, and of course the more you do it and the more you trust it, the easier it is. So I'm telling you to follow your intuition. Take memories from the past and say, well, when did this feel really good, when did this feel really bad? Use that as an anchor to anchor yourself and say, well, those are my intuitions for good and bad. So you've calibrated your machine, and then go through a load of people you know, a load of people you don't know, a load of places you know, a load of places you don't know. You don't even have to go there, you just have to think of them or look at a picture, and you will tune in, and you will go from calibrating the 2 extreme ends to calibrating all the lines in the middle, and then you've got your intuition meter, and you can use that for politics, you can use it for science, anything you like. And the internet and books and experts will tell you if you're right or not when you check up. So your intuition and a little bit of knowledge and a lack of trust and faith in those people who are in charge of you will stop them screwing you with low interest rates, quantitative easing and debasing the currency. Now there's one more thing that I wanted to say, if I can find it over here, because it's about house prices anyway. Yes, all of you feel better when your house price has gone up, but what will you do if you sold it tomorrow with that profit? That is the question. Think about it. That's not your intuition, that is your knowledge, because the real knowledge is the experience, and your intuition will join with the experience, put the 2 together, and nobody will ever cheat you again. So that is the rule. 2014 they cheated you. I'm showing you how they did it and how to see through it. In 2015, the more people who see this and learn this, they won't be able to be cheated again, and we'll be free, because the whole system runs by consent. It's all an illusion. When you see through the illusion, the consent melts away and you kick out the old system and you are free again. Thank you. This has been 2014, over and out. Peace, whatever else. That's right, live long and prosper. That's the one. Good night.